hard-hitting questions come out. I've got a couple that I want to ask, and then, by all means, raise a hand or signal someone with a microphone to come over and take your questions. So the one big thing I wanted to ask both of you, what are some very concrete things we as consumers or as employees do to really flex our muscle? We've talked about this consumer power, but what are some specific things that I could tell a non-nerd, basically someone who wouldn't be here, to do?
My first response would be to say to be open and to share that data as consumers. As I've just been saying, I think there is, companies at the moment, we can challenge them in different ways, but they need to know more about us. And sure, there are privacy issues that we need to be concerned about and need to think through. But once we have got that confidence to express ourselves and share our data, then I think that openness will really help us challenge companies and have consumer wins.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would say that I think over the last 20 years we have been, what I said, focusing more and more on transactions, which means that we were always thinking, if we do something, what do we get in return? And that's really the economic thinking that we have been adapting. And I think that, and social media is kind of proving that we are doing things because of empathy, just because we like to do it. And if we should design conversations based on that empathy base instead of transactions, we might do completely different things.
All right, so I should definitely tell my dad to sign up for Blippi.
Although be careful what he buys where.
Are there any questions? Really? Aha, please.
I'm Stowe Boyd. I'm very interested in what you were saying a minute ago about near future information, and maybe you could elaborate a little more of how it is you would perceive that companies could take advantage of it, or why it is that as individuals we'd like to share that with companies.
I think for me it comes down primarily to an individual's time. So the fact that we are limited by the time. We all have our own time-money ratio, but where we spend our time, our next time, and our time beyond that is at the center of everything. And so what that means is that all the different companies that, as consumers, we interact with, are all in competition together. It's not just like the only competition is different restaurants. In fact, a restaurant competes with a post office, competes with a concert, competes with a TV program for our time. And so that's all a melting pot of where we're going to be next. And if you think about your location, where you are is so important in determining when you are next. And so here now, after this, we may well go to the U-Bahn station, or we may well go to a pub, or we may well go to a restaurant. And it's making that logic between where you are now and when you'll be where next. So for me, I think that's the important thing. It all stems from your time and I guess the trends of how you've spent your time in the past.
Actually, following up on that, so if I've always wanted to own a pub, so let's pretend I own a pub. How do you envision the delivery mechanism for me as the pub owner to tell everyone who's in the immediate 5-block radius that we're having 10% off beer? Do you see it from a mobile device? Are there laptops? Is there different hardware?
A mobile phone for me, yep. So mobile phone is so important from a location point of view and a time point of view. We're all becoming more confident in using mobile phones for those reasons. But I think it will allow, if there can be a site that really is able to understand the science behind your social media data, then it will allow a more personalized sharing of offers. So it won't just be that the pub next door sends a 10% offer to all three of us. It'll just be targeted to one of us because of the trends of what we've done before, what content we've shared with who in our social networks, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's through the mobile phone. I'm not quite sure of the mechanics around how that will be, but I think there's a big gap for that to be done, and I think that will mean a lot of consumer wins.
So the idea of the way information can spread online and does so quickly, how does one, to play devil's advocate, control the misinformation that spreads so well? Is there a way to control it? A specific example would be in the United States. I don't know if you heard, but we have a new president, President Obama. And the polls differ, but around 25% of Americans don't think he's an American citizen. Now, that is largely the result of a really effective online campaign of misinformation. How do we guard against it? Is there any way to guard against it? Is it just an American problem?
I think actually most of the time we're not really interested in the real truth. We're just interested in the stories we share. And if we all say something, that's what we believe and that's what it is. Actually, I've been working for a large express company, and we worked in a global context, and our project manager was based in Phoenix, Arizona. And we have actually doubted all the time if he was working for our company or if he was working for the competitor, because he confused the project all the time so much. So yeah, that's just, you have to share stories about someone to start trusting him. That's the whole process, and perhaps even more important than just trying to find out the real truth.
It's a very talkative group.
They want the next speaker on stage, I think.
Oh. All right, well, in this case, thank you very much. We've got another round of speakers, so stay tuned.